Right. Got it.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the For Animals, For Earth show. I'm Brandy Heidi Montague. If you don't know me, I'm the founder of For Animals, For Earth. And I'm joined today by Jess Taylor and Natalie Ringeis of Love the Green Life. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. We are so excited to be here with you.
I'm so excited to have you here. So our topic for today is a certified wildlife habitat in our own backyard. And what is so cool about this conversation is that I actually heard this for the first time on Jess and Natalie's podcast last spring. And when they were talking about how they had created these certified wildlife habitats in their own backyard, I was thinking, wow, like this is so cool. And it's something that any of us can do, all of us can do, that is really a gift back to the animal world around us, right? Because I think naturally as human beings have sadly and kind of like not even knowingly, taken away a lot of natural habitat for our own habitat and to build our own, places to live. And so it's such an amazing way to take kind of like that land that is within our control and do something with it to give back to the animals around us and the earth. And so excited for the conversation. The way that we're going to structure today is we're going to dive into a little bit about Jess and Natalie's stories first, because they're both moms, they're both teachers, they're both very passionate about saving the environment and doing things that are practical and approachable within their daily lives to live, I guess, just a more sustainable, healthier, greener life. And so, so anyway, that's kind of their background. I want to dig into your stories. So I was saying the structure was going to be, we're going to dig into your stories, then we're going to talk about what a certified natural habitat is and how you have like the specific ideas from what you've done in your own backyards. And then we'll wrap up with just our like one simple idea that we always do and how to get in touch with you guys. So let's get you talking because I want to hear from both of you. Let's start with just your individual stories. Like, what was your journey into, let's call it sustainability for lack of a better overarching word, and also just your journey into friendship with each other.
Aww. Well, Jess has a really beautiful story about how she became vegan. And I'll let you share your pieces and parts of that because it's a really lovely story about her. But our friendship, I think it was rooted in nature. We both taught at a nature-based, project-based charter school. So already her and I were entering an education space that was non-traditional, that put environmental education, nature-based education, gardening with children, it put that as a central focus. That was the central focus of the school. So already her and I taught elementary grades, just taught performing arts. So already her and I were in a space that highlighted that as a value. And her and I became really quick friends because our boys are similar age. I was on maternity leave when Jess first started teaching, and she was getting her and her husband were going through the adoption process. And then I came back to school. I had my son, and then that summer is when you got your son. Yeah. So we both got our boys within the same, 8-10 months or so together. So we kind of also connected on just that journey of motherhood as environmentalists, as people who are nature-based. So we really connected on that journey of motherhood, and we became friends that way, just because we had a lot of similar points in life. Now that I am currently no longer teaching, I'm crossing over out of the teaching field into the business world. And Jess is doing the same thing. She's crossing over from the performing arts teaching world to the business world. So now we're working on this transition together, and I couldn't have asked for a more inspirational person. So I'm really excited for you to hear from her too, and because She's been an amazing colleague and friend. And she's really helped enhance my green life. So I'm really happy to share what we have for everybody today, because it's been really inspirational to me personally.
I love you.
Yeah.
I feel like you've really helped my journey too. I feel like we both have like different aspects of it. So that's why it's really good, because there's a lot of stuff that you're super knowledgeable about that I'm not. And I feel like I'm learning. Like that's why like
Yeah.
I sent her a message last night. I'm like, I need help. How do I winterize my rain barrel? Like I keep forgetting to ask, tell me. So that's what's, it's a great blend for us. Like we both have different like walks of life in our sustainability
Yeah.
journey that
Yeah.
it meshes well together. But I really started like at a very young age. I grew up across the street from an egg farm, and my mom worked there. And, at a very small age, I questioned what I was being given to eat. And I don't remember this, but my mom always tells the story that this was like the road I was destined to be on, because she gave me chicken and I asked her what it was. And she was like, chicken. I was like, but what is it? And she's like, chicken. I kept saying, but I don't get it. And she's like, oh my gosh, like, what is wrong with you, kid? Like, it's chicken. And I said to her, like the animals, because I had saw them like all the time across the street. And she was like, yes, like an animal. I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm not eating that. And that was like my childhood journey. I always hated like typical American kid foods that, like I was probably like the annoying kid to be invited to parties because I'm like, oh, how are we going to feed this kid? I wasn't a vegetarian or anything because I was like 80s and 90s, not even like heard of. But I just was thought of as a picky eater. So it was my first year of college. I was just like, well, I'm an adult now. This is what I'm doing. And that was in 2003. And it was still like not heard of. I was met with tons of people that were like, you're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to sustain this. Like, why would you do that? Where are you going to get your protein? All that stuff, because they just didn't know about it. And like that drove me to just be like, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And so here I am almost 19 years later, still like have not had any meat since then. I'm now a vegan for 6 years once I discovered I had a dairy allergy. And now it's so much easier. But I just always had this like love for animals, and this like just I knew like I just did not want to eat them, and it was just, I didn't, because of the time I grew up in, I just didn't understand what that meant, like, and now I can have a 4-year-old who's been a vegan and it's completely okay and accepted. And his doctor thinks it's awesome, but like in the 80s and 90s, it wasn't like that. So that was like my journey as far as that goes. But I've always been like in love with saving the planet. Like I remember in 5th grade, I got this book called Save Our Planet. And I was like this little nerdy girl that carried it around everywhere. I had like the pages bookmarked and circled and highlighted and outlined. And so yeah, so it was, I feel like this was just like my life mission. And it took a while to figure out how to make that happen, and kind of having the right people entering my life to make it happen.
That's amazing. And I guess the right time, right? Because there
Yeah.
were other things filling your life until this kind of opening was created. I think I'm assuming the idea was there, but I know COVID opened a lot for you to be able to really kind of move Love the Green Life forward, correct?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my work was closed for months. It gave me the opportunity to really start putting into place like the nonprofit portion of it. And also having somebody in my life who was like, hey, I can set that up for you and you don't have to pay me right now. Because that was another roadblock, was like paying a lawyer to set it up. And then she's like, I'm going to do a nonprofit fee, which was like ridiculous, like how cheap she like did it for us, but she set it up for us. So it was just finding those right people, having that right timing, and
Yeah.
being patient with that, I guess.
Yeah,
Things happen when they're supposed to happen.
that's true.
And it's so hard to
Mhm.
keep telling yourself that, isn't
Yeah,
it?
that's why I was just smiling.
Well, I was already planning on resigning my teaching position because had taught for 14 years. I was already planning on resigning my position to be home more with my husband's with his job and things. I need to be home more for the kids. So we were already working on just the transition of me being at home and figuring out other avenues of income. And I decided to jump on with the nonprofit as a hobby. I had been working over 40 hours for years with children and nursing through all of that and childcare through all of that and doing baby-led weaning. Like, it was just a lot. So I really, doing Love the Green Life with Jess and just helping her was a way for me to grow my hobby and my passion and my love for nature and the planet, because that was always a core joy of me teaching with children, was the environmental impact. I gardened with the kids. We hiked daily. For one group, we hiked every day, every morning. We took a 20-minute hike every morning as a class, just to wake us up and just see what we could see. And it was really incredible. So I missed that nature connection that I had with my students. I just moved it on to friends. Which is a lot better for me right now in life,
Yeah.
So that really, and we built habitats like with the class, like we would build bug hotels out of recyclables for the bugs and put
Composting.
I had compost bins. I had worms in my classroom. We studied, another class made a whole monarch butterfly garden. So my class got to really experience that through the older children and learn from them about the monarch butterflies and how you can grow plants to help their life. So having an episode on certified wildlife habitats was really cool for us to kind of tell other people that, hey, you can do this too. And yeah, we did it with kids, but you could just do this. Like, you don't have to have a classroom or a teacher.
Well, and I just did it in my yard.
And you just did it in your yard. Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool. Like, number one, the school that you taught at sounds incredible. I think just like for children to grow up with that opportunity to learn through a nature-based environment it's really cool in and of itself. And I think it's probably a lot more common out here in California, but where you are in Ohio, I don't know how common that is, but it's pretty cool that you both found that opportunity being something that you both loved and a place to do that and then get to know each other. And now that I just think it's so cool also to just hear how your friendship journey brought you together into this nonprofit, because a lot of our listeners are going to resonate with so many of the things that you said, because we're all passionate about helping animals, helping the environment, and on our journeys trying to figure out how can we best do that, and jumping into different ideas to try it, and then having to be patient like you said, and like wait for things to change or things to happen. And it takes a lot of determination, to like just keep going in this space, because it's not a space that always flows that naturally, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, that's why I think like podcasts like yours and organizations like Love the Green Life, I think they're so important and they're so influential to people that are looking for that community. They're looking to grow that in their life. They're looking to they want to keep up to date with what's happening on the planet. What can they do that's going to actually be effective? We're not fad people. We want to make sure what we're doing is actually something that is going to change the planet for the good. So I think finding that community, I think I found your blog through Reddit, I believe.
Yeah, well, actually, I think we met through Wit and Wire.
We met through Wit and Wire.
Yeah.
We met through Wit and Wire, which is a podcasting community. I think just finding your people is key. So I'm really excited to talk to your listeners today and give them another avenue, another community that they can touch base with and meet, and we can definitely help serve them in the best way that we can.
Yes, I love it. And so let's dig into the whole
Okay.
conversation about building a certified wildlife habitat in our own backyard, because you have both done this, for yourselves and with with the school. And I think this is just something that is so cool and so approachable. So can we start with, will you just tell us all what is a certified wildlife habitat? And coming from the National Wildlife Federation, what it is in the first place, because people might be kind of going, huh? Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, are you making your yard a zoo?
Exactly.
Like, do I have
Exactly.
to clean up animal scat? No.
My yard is almost a zoo. We have so many animals. Well, the cool part about it is, even if you don't certify, it gives you some really cool tips of things you can just add to your yard. So that's what's neat about it, is you don't have to like dive completely in, but it's really like easily attainable. When I first found out about this from just a friend on Facebook who was like, look what I did. And I was like, I want that sign for my yard. Like, that's what I wanted, was
Because
the
when
cute
you,
metal sign that
because
says,
basically if you go through this process and you make your backyard or your green space a certified wildlife habitat. I'm a person that likes certificates, stickers.
It's the teachers in us.
I like rewards. And if you go to nwf.org, their garden for wildlife, if you certify it, that you get a sign for your yard.
Mhm.
And it's a cool sign.
It
And
is.
it
That's
is
why I
a cool
said
sign.
it's really cute.
Yes.
And it's a cool conversation piece, because people like walking down. I have a huge like wildflower bed at the end of my like driveway front area by the road. And our sign is like kind of by there. And I'll be out there working and someone will be like, oh, but tell me about this, So it's a really neat conversation piece to, kind of someone who might not at all be involved in this arena that we are in, to just learn something. And I mean, I live in a really wooded area. Pretty much everybody that lives in that area is hip to nature. Like, that's why you move there. But there's still stuff that they don't know. So yeah. But the cool thing is, so it covers 5 focuses, and it's food, water, cover, places to raise young, and sustainable practices. And you have to meet certain amounts for each one to be able to certify. But a lot of it's really easy. Some of it's stuff that like we already had. So for example, like cover is just trees and bushes. So like
We already
done,
have that there.
like,
Yeah.
so for us, it was easy. Some of it, then this was one thing we were talking about before coming on here, is like, when we did this for our podcast, we were very specific to our area and our climate. And we talked a lot about some other things that like locally you can do and stuff. So it'll be neat to maybe even hear from you. You might have some other things that might be for like your climate and your, like, because obviously like you have different animals there in your backyard than we do. Like, I have a herd of deer that just live there. They never leave. Like, they sleep in the pine trees. So, obviously it's different according to where you live. And so that's interesting to me to maybe see like what feedback you have for some of this too.
And all right, so if you're thinking, okay, I get a cool sign, is it hard? No, it's not hard. You basically need to do something in those 5 focus areas. So already we talked about cover. So if you have some type of cover, this could even be if you just have a barn or a deck or something like that, the animals go under. You can, if you have like a birdhouse or a roosting box, any type of like rock pile. I have a rock wall that's made with like old barnstone that the chipmunks just have created their entire
labyrinth.
Yeah, they're full labyrinth that my dog just thinks it's his personal toy. Like, oh, if I bark here, they jump out there.
Like what's that game?
Whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Which I'm like,
But
such
it's
a
with
sad game.
chipmunks. And I check out my chipmunks. They tease my dog. But we'll talk about food here in a second. But some type of cover. And I guess the next thing would be like water source.
Let's talk about cover real quick.
Cover,
so
okay.
on the cover, let's talk about why it's a part of the focus, because it's
Okay.
so the animals can find a place for safety, right? Because
Yeah.
there's I think in a lot of kind of our neighborhoods that have been created, if there isn't cover available, if there is like a natural disaster or predators, they
Mhm.
don't have that natural habitat that they would have had to find cover from these things, right? And so we're trying to replace that, I guess, and add something that gives them a place to go in extreme weather conditions and things like that, which is something that was heartwarming to me to think, because every time there's a storm or a tornado, I always think like, oh, what's happening with all those animals
know.
out there and
Yep.
where are they?
Yeah, same.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's where, for this one, you need at least two sources. I feel like I have a source for like every type of animal that's like in my yard. I mean, we have, like bug hotels. I have a toad house for like Tommy the toad that lives in my flower bed.
And
We
get
have
your kids involved in making some of this
that's
stuff
what I was
too.
going to say. Yeah.
Like toad houses. We have a lot of, this one's kind of for your small little critters, seashells, like from when we've gone on vacation and stuff with the kids have collected. Those are just thrown in like the rock piles, or it's in the garden beds. There's flowers on top of them, but those are great little holes and for little tiny critters to go in and find.
Mhm.
So really you can be creative with it, and you can be design specific with your space. If you want it to look very manicured, you can with your vegetation. Animals will still find their way around. They'll make it work.
That's really
So,
cool. Yeah, that's really cool. I was thinking too, just about how so much about the animals in your yard, and that comes from like having spent time out there putting this together. Like your toad, and like, I mean, that's pretty
chipmunks.
impressive.
Yeah, I was going
the
to say, we
chipmunk-
recognize
Yeah.
certain squirrels.
My really grumpy blue jay.
That's
He's
amazing.
so mad at me.
And the deer and everything. But a lot of that
Yeah.
is just, observing. Like we're constantly looking out
Yeah.
at night. I don't know how many times I flip on the light to see what's out there. And something's out there every time I turn it on, whether it's our skunk family that comes as soon as it becomes dusk, or the raccoons, or, whatever.
Yeah.
But we're just always looking, always taking care of. Like I even like joked with my mom, because I was like, if we ever go on vacation, I'm like, who's going to do all this? Like, it's like having a farm, like the amount of like,
No, you do a lot
feeding-
more than I know.
I know the amount of feeding I do.
I have a
and-
very hands-off
yeah,
approach.
mine is not. Mine is like having a farm.
Yours, you come out and say, or mine, my blue jay has to yell at me.
Yeah, I feed.
And then I have
feed the
my
other
morning
animals.
doves waiting for the dog to leave. Like, can they, like, I have pictures of the morning doves every morning on my roof. Like, can that thing leave so we can eat? Is our table ready?
That's so cute.
But
So-
I think, I think you're right about observation. You got to go outside. You have to take your kids, go outside and just color. Just sit out there. Have your cup of coffee. Eat a donut. I don't care. Vegan or not. Like, you have to see what you have. Or else you're going to just be like making a toad house for nothing.
That's
And then
really
you're-
interesting.
And then your kid isn't gonna, or you're not gonna really experience the full circle of it. If you're actually gonna help wildlife, then you want to make sure that you're putting your energy into things that are for the animals that are there. And the only way you're gonna know is if you hang out.
I love that, because that's really kind of a step one
You're
that
right,
really
now that I
makes
thought about
this
it.
even more approachable. like it makes this even more approachable than what we're already saying this is really approachable. You just focus on these 5 areas, you do a few things in each area. But I think even more approachable than that is just starting by going out into the yard and just observing and watching. I think that's a great first step, and it makes a lot of sense. And like you're both saying, just kind of like take notes, whether it be mentally or physically, but kind of understand who the animals are that are sharing our habitat with us.
Yeah.
And then what can we do to help them? I think that's a really, that's a really great approach.
Yeah, and buying like a butterfly house and putting out there, and you've never seen a butterfly, that's not going to help the, your environment of where you live. So you have to know what's out there and what you can do then to support those specific things that are visiting your yard. And it's different for me than you, even though we live in the same area. Like our yards have different things, and we have different kinds of birds that come, and different, so we don't do exactly the same thing that, even though we're in the same area. So you just have to really pay attention to what your yard needs. And that's kind of where this is nice, because you can kind of use this as a little checklist to even just start like observing, like, oh wow, I noticed I have this rock pile, look what's in it, like chipmunks go in it, or
Yeah, like you probably like a rock pile that you've never actually looked at before. Like I've got one sitting out here, and I'm like, it's there, and it's like we've always looked at it saying we need to do something with that area at some point. But it's like, other than that, I haven't paid much attention to it. So I think that for me even is a great first step, because I don't really know. I know a few of the little wildlife in my backyard. We don't have a big space, and there is very little wildlife that actually makes its way into my backyard. But yeah, anyway, so there's 5 areas. We talked about one, which is cover. The second is food. Third is water. Fourth is places to raise young. And the 5th is sustainable practices. So let's dive into food next, because you talked a little bit about plants and bushes and things like that. So what did you do for food? And I guess maybe let's take one step back. Let's start with why we need to provide food sources in our yards, like why it's important.
Okay, I don't mind.
So much like what you said with the cover, is that a lot of animals' natural resources are being diminished. And we see all the time. I get like completely sick, not in my stomach, every time I see like an area that has like the for sale sign, 86 acres or whatever. And I'm like, oh, like that. Let's talk major goal for Love the Green Life. This is what I want, is for us to have enough money that we can buy those places and then do nothing with them. That's my goal. Like my husband even says that. He's like, man, he's like, if we're ever millionaires, I'm buying all this like vacant land that they're trying to sell to build stuff on, and we're just leaving it. Like,
it'd be
because
amazing.
that's right. That it just like breaks my heart, because then you see all those trees, acres and acres, just destroyed. And so what happens to those animals? They've lost their shelter, they've lost their food sources, their water sources. So that's why doing this, even if it's at such a small scale, it provides something for them. And so as far as like food sources, to certify, you need 3 sources. And it's not really as hard as it seems, because you might think, oh my gosh, 3 sources is a lot. But native plants that they would eat naturally in their own regular habitat, it's pretty easy. Having plants that have seeds, berries, nuts, nectar, even just regular, like the deer like to eat my rhododendron plants. I'm okay with it. It's whatever, eat them. Except one did pull the one completely like out of the ground. My husband had to replant it, so I don't know what they were doing. But
and so some of those native plants can be good for you too, that you can let grow. For example, we have a bunch of wild, like on the back, like a lot of wild grapes. which my kids could eat. They're not the most flavorful. They're pretty tart, but it's fun for the kids and the all bunch of animal, bunch of wildlife. The deer come, possums, we have raccoons. They can eat that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, again, like a manicured garden that you make. Like, this is my bird plant. It can just be something as simple as you buy a wildflower seed packet and you just like chuck it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I know we've had kids do in the past with like a dead end of the playground. They literally just grab chunks of handfuls of wildflower seeds and just threw them, and then we saw what happened. Let nature take its course, and that's really fun. So, and I think something else is like supplemental bird feeders.
Yeah.
So I know that's something I've worked on in my yard as we were moving into a new space with bird feeders, making sure you're getting bird seed for the birds that you have or that you see. I was lucky that the homeowners, before we bought our house, they were avid bird watchers. And so they kept track of all the different species of birds that they would sit and enjoy. So that was nice. So then I knew right off the bat, like what to get. Like I knew that they liked black oil sunflower seeds and not some of the other stuff. So I didn't have to waste my money.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And
Okay.
also under like supplemental bird feeders, that can count as like hummingbird feeders too. So it doesn't have to just be seed.
Or whatever birds you have in
Yeah.
your area, because I'm sure that's what we have around here.
Mhm.
I know in our podcast episode about creating your own wildlife habitat, we talked about the purple martins in Summit County, where we are. We have a conservation society in our county for those birds. So these are also things that you can maybe, if you want to step out of your comfort zone a little bit and maybe see what your local metro parks or rangers or what the forestry and wildlife people in your area, what they're doing, so you can maybe support those efforts.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, because it is so native to each area,
Yeah.
so yeah.
And supporting, like, once again, just what you have. Like, we have a hummingbird feeder because I have hummingbirds that come, every year, and they come multiple times a day. I make my own hummingbird nectar, so it doesn't have like red dye or anything like that in it. But then we also have, bird feeders. I have a deer feeder. I have a squirrel feeder. So that's why I said it's like running a farm.
But I don't have hummingbird stuff because my blue jays will hurt them. My blue jay is very dominant. It's very much his territory. If I try to attract hummingbirds, the circle of life. Somebody could argue, Natalie, you're bringing them food.
Yeah.
I don't wake up and choose violence if I don't have to.
Yep.
I mean, it would be kind of devastating, and I'm sure it's happened many a time where someone
it happens, but I don't have.
You don't want to be the one in control of that.
I don't
situation.
want to have some Squid Game going on with my hummingbirds and the blue jays. No, can't do that.
Let's quickly hit on the other three. So water is one. Why bring in water, and what have you guys done?
Well, for water, you only need one source. So that's a really easy one. And I feel like really the why is kind of the same of what we've been talking about, just being able to help provide for those
clean,
habitats that they have clean. Yep. Bird baths. So you only need one source. That's a really easy one source. I have 3 bird baths throughout my yard, like one in the front, 2 in the back.
I have 2. I have a deep one and a shallow.
Yep. Yeah.
Like plate one.
Yep. I have a shallower one too. That's in like my flower bed right outside the window. So it's cute. The squirrels drink out of there. So do my feral cats.
And a bird taking a bath is like the strongest antidepressant.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Oh.
So
just to
cute.
watch them.
Yes. Oh, they're so plump. Oh, that's so cute.
Oh, sweet. That's a good part about all of this, right?
Yeah.
Because we do
Oh,
know
yeah.
connecting with nature
Yeah.
really helps with anxiety and depression. And this is like such a great way to do that, like where you don't have to leave your house, because a lot of times we don't want to leave our house, and
Yeah.
you can feel better just at home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you have like a natural pond or stream or some kind of water
Yeah,
source,
that
you
it's
already
taken
have
care
it.
of.
But if you don't, and if you are in a place where you're like, hey, I live in an apartment and I just have this patio, you can have a water dish out there, like, I mean, you can create something that really works in whatever area you're in. Like, we both have larger yards. We have the space to have multiple bird baths.
Mhm.
And
And I'm close to
with that
a lake.
comes, yeah, and with that comes though, you have to be able to maintain that though. Like, I have to scrub with my brush daily, those
Yeah, you have
bird
to keep it
baths
clean.
and keep them clean and fill them with fresh water. And, but then I see the deer drinking out of them, and like they come right up to my window and drink out of the one outside the window. And like, it still gets me excited, even though like they really never leave. I'm like, oh, they're right there. And like, that's amazing for my 4-year-old, like, I don't think he fully gets it that like deer don't just live in everybody's yard. You know what I mean? Like, he just like walks out and talks to them. Like, it's like having a dog out there. Like, to him, it's like no big deal.
Mhm.
But I even say to him, like, do you realize how cool this is? Like people don't have like a herd of deer that just live here and they don't leave, like, and at night he'll see the raccoons out there and stuff like that. It's like, this is like a treasure, like
Yeah.
treasure this moment. This is cool.
It really is. It really is amazing. And, it's like maybe we can't all get to the point where we have, a herd of deer living in our
Yeah.
yard, but we can connect to some sort of wildlife
Mhm.
that will be able to be there. And like you said, you brought up the apartment, which I was thinking, yeah, it's like, how do you do this if you're in an apartment? And you just do it on the scale that you have available. I was also thinking, if people are feeling moved to do it at their apartment, maybe there's room to influence the landowner to
Mhm.
do something outside of the buildings. I mean, I
Yeah.
think
And
a
even
lot of
creating like the rooftop, like a
Oh,
rooftop
yeah.
garden and like things like that, like depending on
I see some
where you
really
are,
cool
or
rooftop
yeah.
sanctuaries.
Mhm. Or if it's like a apartment complex that does have some land,
Mhm.
like you said, like making this like a community effort or something like that. And
Or even if you have a shared garden, because your wildlife habitat can you could easily check off all these things for just bees, or just pollinators. So maybe you have a garden and you just want to bring pollinators into your space. You could certify that garden as a wildlife habitat if you were doing specific things for just those pollinators. So if you're hearing, we're doing a lot for mammals here, a lot for birds, maybe you just want to get some, like healthy insects to help your garden. You could do that.
Mhm.
and then it helps their populations, which is a huge thing we all need to be
Mhm.
working on, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay, the next section, places to raise their young.
Which is also, once again, super important as habitats are being diminished,
Mhm.
because it's not safe for them if they don't have a space for them to be able to raise young safely, their populations are going to dwindle and they're not going to be able to thrive. So being able to give them that space too, if you have the ability, is
Mhm.
another thing that's amazing. So this is 2 places to have. One that's easy is trees or shrubs. So there's like one that, most yards already have that. Having, like you kind of just started to talk about, like pollinators, having like caterpillar host plants
Mhm.
to, be able to help butterflies
Mhm.
thrive. If you have a pond for amphibians, if you have bird nesting boxes. So it doesn't have to be as like, you don't have to think about, oh, I don't have any space for this deer family, like I'm lucky I do. We have a whole like lot in between me and my neighbor that is just woods, that there's no housing there. So a lot of things live in there. So I have that ability that just already exists. But you can easily help other animals than just those by having some easy little places, even just like I said, we have a toad house, that provides cover, but it's also a place where little baby toads can live. And they're super cute. They're like this big. I know this is a
So
podcast,
cute.
but they're like an inch.
It's
Not
so
David.
cute. So
Well, you
cute.
can even have a place to raise young. Like I was thinking of bat boxes.
Yeah.
So say you have a lot of mosquitoes are an animal that most people don't love and adore. Mosquitoes eat like thousands and thousands of, bats eat thousands and thousands of mosquitoes a night. Put a bat house up. There are some specifications to bat houses depending on the species of bat that you might have in your area. So again, just a tiny, tiny bit of legwork, but because you have to have a certain height and width.
And it has to have the sun hit it for so many hours a
there's
day,
some
keep it
specifications
warm.
bat houses, but put up a bat house. The bats can raise their young. Jess in our podcast, she talks about those things that her and her husband did to modify the bat house to protect it.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't need to go into like the whole thing, but bat houses, then you take care of your mosquito problem in your backyard.
That's that's awesome. And it's like it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's also kind of dips into another conversation, which is one that I'm really hoping to have on the podcast at some point, but is about like natural pest control, because there's so much that like actually balances itself in the environment if it's given the ability to do that.
Yeah.
So
and like if you already have bats, like we have bats, I see them circle at night, so I'm like, please stay here, because we live in the woods and mosquitoes are awful. Like we can't sit outside at night. It does not work. I can more than my husband. He's like the magnet for them. And he's like, I'm getting all bit up. I'm like, I haven't even had one near me.
We're the same
like,
here. Same story. Yeah, same story.
And then
here.
he's like completely covered in like golf ball size bugs.
We do have an episode on lawn and garden care.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
Love
that.
the Green Life, the Love the Green Life podcast. We do have, it's part of our home series. We this summer we had a whole home series, and one of them was lawn care. So we do mention some pest control options that are sustainable and balanced for the environment.
Awesome. Okay, cool. We'll link to that in the show notes for everybody. So the last one is sustainable practices. And this I know gets into kind of like the soil and it's all about how do you, now you've set the place up, how do you make it sustainable, right? What did you guys do for sustainable practices?
There's 3 groups and you need at least 2 of them. So the 3 groups are soil and water conservation, control invasive exotic species, and organic practices. So you need at least 2 of those. So I felt like, a lot of these I already had. So under soil and water conservation, that includes limiting your water usage, composting, using mulch, reducing like pavement so you have more lawn.
Or not as much lawn, more of just the natural vegetation that's there.
Yeah,
so less lawn,
that's
more natural vegetation.
Installing a rain barrel, which we talked a lot about on ours, because she has had a rain barrel for a while. I just got one this spring and it has been incredible. Just, it's so awesome to use it. It's so convenient too. I've like barely turned on my hose because I used to spend like over an hour watering all my stuff and like draining our well because it would use so much water. So that has been an amazing like water conservation. So under
Now
like,
say you didn't want to do any of those. That was too much. Maybe I have you ever heard of those places where you can like smash a car to like relieve your stress?
Yes.
Okay. Stress relief, just figure out what the invasive species is in your yard and pull the crud out of it. So we had like, I forget what it was. It was like it's a type of morning glory vine, but it's not a morning glory that was growing all over our backyard. We had to tear that out and just removing that invasive plant counts.
Yep.
Also, if you have cats, keeping them indoors. I think that could be a little controversial because some people really like their cats outdoors too.
Yeah, the purpose of that
The
is
purpose
because
is-
cats can do a lot of damage to the wildlife that
Yeah.
you're attracting.
That's if you're
So-
waking up and choosing violence.
Right, yeah. So like my cats,
Maybe you don't let your kids out.
my cats stay indoors. I have 3, but then I have 2 feral cats that I take care of outside. And it's because I don't have a choice. Like it's taken me 2 years. And I finally can pet the one. The other one I still can't touch. So I care for them. But because I feed them like 3 times a day, okay, they're the most like well taken care of feral cats. I even give them little vitamins and everything to boost their immune systems.
We are so opposite on this.
I am like the crazy cat lady. This is why I said if we ever go on vacation, I have to pay like a farmhand to take care of my like wildlife. But they really don't bother any of the, like they'll be laying out there and the squirrels are like running around them. They don't really bother them. I think because they're like lazy outdoor cats now. But I still can't physically bring them in yet because they're not able to
No.
they're not able to
But I think
handle that.
when it comes to like doing something that is, you're controlling exotic species, you're controlling the species in your yard.
Yeah, I'm
So
still
you're-
controlling them, but I'm not adding to it by
You're
letting
not
my
adding to
cats
it.
out to,
So
you
that's a
know.
really easy one to grab. I
Mhm.
think if you're like, I don't know how to certify,
yeah.
that's going to be a really hard one.
Mhm.
The last one is like that you could choose from is organic practices. So kind of like what you were saying with the mosquitoes and sprays, eliminating chemical pesticides and fertilizers. We talk more about this in our episode about lawn and garden care, and also attracting any beneficial insects. So even if you just have something to attract those pollinators, that
Mhm.
counts. So a lot of these things kind of can do double duty too, which is nice.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. And so then, as you all are talking, just in case anyone didn't follow this piece. So as they say,
it's a lot.
this counts, or, you need to do 2 things or 1 thing. What this all is to get the national natural wildlife certified natural habitat certification
Yeah.
that NWF offers. And it's
Mhm.
really kind of like a cute certification that you can get for your yard, but you can do all of these things even without the certification
Yeah.
Right.
to make your yard a better natural habitat.
Yeah.
But the certification is pretty straightforward. You check off little things in these 5
Mhm.
buckets we've talked about, and you turn it into the National Wildlife Federation, and you get a certificate and a really cute sign that Jess and Natalie were talking about at the beginning that you can put in your yard.
Mhm.
And it's just such a cool, great way to give back within our realm of control. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really love it. I love it. I'm so glad that you guys are willing to come on and talk about it. We wrap up every episode with one simple idea, and this is one idea off the top of your head. You can either both share one or you can share one together that listeners could do to make a difference for animals and the environment within their daily lives today.
Okay. Well, we have your simple idea, and then we have a stretch goal.
Okay, perfect.
Because in case you're an overachiever.
We have overachievers around
have
here.
overachievers.
Yeah, actually, I am going to call out one of my listeners, Amy, because this is for her, because she's always asking me for harder things. So Amy, this
All
one's
right.
for you.
So a simple idea is to really pull aside 15 minutes of your time and just sit in your outdoor space. And just bring a book, color,
Journal.
a journal,
Mhm.
drink a cup of coffee, and just be aware of what you're seeing, smelling, hearing. Get aware of the wildlife that's around you. So that's our first step idea, is just spend some time and connect.
Mhm. Yeah, because if you're going to care about doing any of this, you need to make that connection. So just being able to observe. And if you have children, a lot of times we focus on families
How we do
and
this with our
how
kids,
to do this
with young
with
children.
kids. That's a great way to get kids to start caring.
Mhm.
Is, let's sit out here. My son just had this as a homework assignment to sit for 3 minutes and listen and then draw what he heard. And so he sat out in our little patio, was drawing, the birds and the crickets. I didn't hear a cricket, but
Mhm.
whatever.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so just that's the best way to really start caring is by just noticing.
Mhm. And my stretch goal, this is for those of you that are like, well, that's fine, but I need a little bit more for a simple idea, is to explore or get in contact with your local division of wildlife and reach out to most of the time you can just call the naturalists, or you can call the ranger stations and just chat with them. My dad is one of these people. These people will talk nature all day. Okay. Oh, did you?
That's awesome. No, that's awesome.
So call them up, call the ranger station. I worked for a township parks and rec department. That was one of my first jobs. The naturalist there, she would chat with people in the community all day. They'd call her up and say, hey, I found this snake or whatever. So my stretch goal would be to contact your local division of wildlife, whether that would be a conservation effort, a metro park, a park system. I'm luckily close to a state park. We have national parks in our area. Connect with them, because they're going to have a pulse on the environment. They're going to know the animals like their children. They're going to know that stuff. So go reach out to an expert.
That's awesome. That's such a good idea. And how cool that you grew up like with a dad who does that too. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I would like to say, like, side story is that my dad has gardened my whole life, but he didn't start gardening until I was in preschool. And I brought home a marigold and I was like, don't kill it. That's my marigold. So my dad planted a marigold and I was so enthralled by this entire process that he bought more and ended up landscaping the front. And then now he has a full victory garden in his backyard with a greenhouse he made from completely upcycled materials. And it's fantastic. It's a great, that garden is a really cool piece of our family and how we interact with our community. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's really
cool.
cool.
Just observing. That's how I started as a little kid, as a preschooler, just observing a flower growing from a seed that I had. Like, it was the coolest thing. So again, it all starts with observation.
That's really cool. Really cool. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to find you guys?
You can check out our website at lovethegreenlife.org. And we are on Facebook and Instagram at lovethegreenlife.org. And on our website, it has a link to our podcast. Our podcast is just Love the Green Life. And we are on like all the major platforms like Spotify and Apple, Google.
iHeartRadio.
Yeah, iHeartRadio.
Cool. We will link to all of it in the show notes and to the specific episodes. So the episode where Jess and Natalie talked in detail about what they do in their backyards, as well as the one about lawn and garden care.
We'll jump into that. Yeah, good.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on, and we will see you all soon. Bye.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.